controlling the masses. And now, broadcasting live from our near-Earth hub studio, we bring you this NBN special report.
Oops, messing up my transitions. Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 7 of Daily Cast. It's the last day of NSG exclusive scoops, and I have 3 wonderful guests to talk today about the 2 IDs that we got scooped today, reflect a little bit on the IDs and other cards that we have so far, as well as maybe a couple thoughts about what we might be looking forward to next. I'm going to have them each introduce themselves, talk a little about who they are, how long they've been playing Netrunner, how they got into it, and then also what their favorite ID from Elevation is, as we've now seen all 14 identities. So, Drew, do you want to go up first and introduce yourself to the stream?
Hey, yeah. I'm Drewcifer. Drew, he, him. I'm the distro lead for NSG, and I've been playing the game for a while. Like I have the original FFG core set, and I was always kind of a kitchen table player myself. Not really getting too deep into it, but I in the last couple of years I've gotten more and more into it. I mostly play startup, mostly just like homebrew my own decks. I was in the middle of prior to this homebrewing an Epiphany Analytica startup deck for tonight's pub runner, which I'll be joining as soon as we're done with tonight's cast. And yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Great. Yeah, you've been doing a lot of work to get distribution back up on its feet, so I'm everyone is really appreciative of that. Ollie, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with Netrunner?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ollie. I'm a UK player. I've been playing for about 10 years or so. I think when I started getting into the game, Order and Chaos was the big box that had just come out. Um, yeah, I guess I kind of played a few months of Kitchen Table Netrunner and then kind of started going to tournaments, and I guess I've kind of been hooked ever since that. Um, so I go to a lot of tournaments in the UK. I'm part of the EA Sports testing group as well. So I play a lot of games with them. And yeah, my favorite ID in the set so far, I think there's quite a few that I think look interesting, and I'm looking forward to building decks with. But Phoenix is probably the one that stands out to me because I'm a lifelong Anarch enjoyer.
Oh my goodness, I apparently can't pull up Phoenix. Why? Okay. I'll pull up Phoenix in a second. And actually, Drew, yeah, what is your favorite ID from the set as well?
It would probably be either Phoenix or Bangan, which was revealed today. But with Phoenix, I think like my little tidbit is I was unintentionally cosplaying as Phoenix at Worlds this year. Like that outfit I was wearing almost verbatim without having planned it, and other NSG crew members were like, "Have you seen this art yet?" And I had not even seen the art yet or anything, and there was a fun inside joke moment there, and it was really enjoyable.
That's very good. All right. Safer, last but most certainly not least, do you want to introduce yourself to the room and say a little about your history with Netrunner and what your favorite ID from the set is?
Sure. Hi everyone. Safer, he, him. I am on the development team and SVT team. I've been playing Netrunner for I don't know. It feels like I think like a decade at this point. I mean, I did take a break from like 2017 to 2023, but Netrunner has kind of always been my favorite game, and I've been with Netrunner for a while now. But now I help make it, and it's super cool. Favorite IDs from this set? I'm gonna say 3. So Misha T for myself as like a Crim enjoyer. Leo as a like just honest corp enjoyer, and then Nebula as a absolute corp combo sicko enjoyer.
Yeah, yeah. Nebula is definitely one of those ideas I'm gonna keep my eye on. I think a lot of people are excited to see what this can do in future standard. Well, you also talked about Militia T, who is the first card we're going to talk about today, but isn't
Wait,
showing up.
what idea are you most excited about, Jeff?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I've said it actually already. Wait, why? Oh goodness, apologies everyone. My favorite, the idea I'm most excited to be playing is Baz. I think both aesthetically and I think the gameplay pattern I'm looking forward to quite a bit as well. As someone who's played a lot of Ari, I love installing when you're not supposed to be able to, and I think Baz is like a similar idea, but opens up some very different possibilities. Not sure why this wasn't opening, but we're just gonna do some live production stuff. Okay, so this is Mulasha T, the other ID for criminal in this set. They are their subtitle is Multifarious Marketeer, she, her for the pronouns, 4MU, 0 link, identity natural. When your turn begins, look at the top card of your stack. If that card is an icebreaker or run event, you may reveal it and add it to your grip. 4515, and the the flavor text peer pressure works. And we also have her flavor text talking about her job doing some underground marketing and influencing, and I like that as a kind of criminal theme. Someone who's just like, yeah, I'm gonna make vibes happen, and a fun little kind of twist on that side of the influencer and criminal space. So, I might, Ollie, I might start with you and curious about to hear your thoughts about Mulasha.
Yeah, so
Musala?
so this ID, it's interesting to me because it's basically just a kind of a reg or like value ID, but unlike something like Sable or Mercury, the value is not tied to kind of making successful runs. Instead, you might get to draw a card that start your turn, which I don't think we've really seen in Criminal, except maybe something like Andromeda. So I think kind of in theory, I think this could be quite a strong ID. I mean, it's quite difficult to evaluate because we so far haven't seen any other criminal cards other than the IDs get spoiled. So we don't know like if there might be some really good run events or like icebreakers. But for example, this is making me want to think about, maybe we want to play like 3 revolvers in our deck, for example.
Yeah, and that just looks say, oh yeah, we don't even need to find like a card in the deck. Like just playing revolvers, drawing them for free is probably pretty good. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I really like how this ID. So like typically in Crim, you would play 2x, maybe 3x mutual favor. And this ID makes you kind of look at that differently and go, maybe I actually just want to play 2x of all of my breakers, which I think builds just like a little differently than other crims, which I really appreciate.
Something I like about it is that you get a look at the card even if you don't draw it. So like there's still value there potentially of informing whether you want to actually spend a click that turn or something else to draw a card, whether you care about that top one that turn is just still interesting, useful information.
Yeah, one other interesting thing, because like the way it's worded is it doesn't actually draw you the card, you reveal it and add it to your grip. So it means if you have a class act installed or something, it's not eating your like class act trigger for that turn, which I guess would be kind of awkward.
Yeah, I think it probably is good that it's like, oh yeah, I get to add this card to my hand and still get my class act trigger if I want it, as opposed to being like, oh, I got my event and I want to draw it, so I'm just gonna kind of waste that class act trigger. It's sometimes I'm like, oh man, it feels bad that you're gonna not get it, but it's like, oh no, if you're adding the event to your grip or the icebreaker to your grip, it's probably good that you get to also still use the class act as an additional trigger, which seems nice. And I don't know, it's a question I immediately think is like, oh, when I think of like the best IDs in Standard up until now, it's been like Hoshiko and Lat, or just like, oh, these are generically the best thing you can do in their respective factions. So I'm kind of curious if we feel like, oh, this is going to be on comparable power level, or if the deck building constraints are going to be a little bit higher for Musala.
I think I think this is probably drawing you fewer cards than like a Lact or a Sheet Code, but Criminal tends to have like stronger cards, so it kind of, in a sense, you that might be okay. Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense to compare like for like, but just maybe getting like a few draws as Criminal might be enough to kind of get you enough tempo.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of downsides of the draw here in comparison to Hosh or Lat is that yes, you have to like have a deck building constraint, but to also get the draw, you actually need to reveal like the card to the corp. So let's say that you flip like a bravado. Okay, now the corp actually has a lot more information about what your turn may look like, and like act accordingly. So Lat and Host just kind of get to be generic and kind of go through their deck really, really quickly, where Mushalat needs both to have like a very specific deck that might make their game plan a little bit more linear and like predictable, but also then reveal exactly kind of what tools they have at their disposal. Or you can do the really cool thing where you actually want to hide the information you do have an impactful run event on top, and you just naturally draw it through your either through like a click or other, like other cards.
Yeah, so
Just
like
saying,
you get
where you look at it and choose not to reveal it.
Yeah, you can. So you can just look at it, say, no, I'm not going to reveal it. Click to draw, or play another draw card, something that like draws you multiple cards, and then play out whatever impactful run event you find. It's probably not a really common thing that you'll do, but I think that, I mean, it happened to me in playtest a couple times, and it was the correct play.
I can see how that would be the correct play. I am not good enough to identify that in real time while I'm playing a game. Absolutely,
Yeah.
bungle that move.
Yeah.
I think if we get like a new like account siphon or diversion of funds, then I think I can definitely see yourself doing that, because I mean, something like just the bravado, for example, you're probably just playing that on the turn you draw it. But if we get some like high impact criminal run events, then I think that's definitely an angle where you don't, as you say, you don't want to reveal them, because you're kind of you might actually be giving the corp too much information at that point.
Yeah, you want to hide your power levels a little bit, like be like, oh yeah, I definitely haven't hit my inside job yet. I've just drawn like my third copy of Class Act, but then you're like, oh no, surprise! It reminds me a little bit, like this idea to some extent reminds me a little bit of like Find the Truth, which was like it was like, oh, that the downside of Find the Truth was, I think, a really easy one for a lot of people to like underestimate how bad it was as the runner to reveal every single card you drew. But like, I don't know how much like, oh yeah, one card, probably like max 10 cards a game compares to like, yes, every single card you draw outside of your opening hand is revealed to the corp. I think is like a pretty big difference disparity. I wonder how much that additional ambiguity is going to be helpful.
Yeah, we do have a one influence fairly specific and timely but impactful run event in Shred. I don't think that Shred is going to see much splash in Mushlat in standard necessarily, but I think this is the kind of card that we could look at, and you could have board states where you are like, no, I'm going to keep this a secret from the corporation.
Yeah, another fun like one influence run event that like maybe actually gets a little bit more legs would be something like direct access.
Yeah, direct access. Yep.
Yeah, because
you can do it.
You can do it, and hey, it shuffles into your deck, so you can get it again.
Especially with Bango as well, like that card maybe got me thinking about direct access for the first time in a while. So
I do like the line where you're revealing a run event and then drawing it, and you're intentionally like this is like the inverse of what Safer was saying, where you're intentionally showing what it is and getting them to play around that because you actually have a different one in your hand that you're going to use afterwards that they've never seen, kind of thing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially with icebreakers,
Mm.
like if you show the corp you join your Kuripura or whatever, and then they're probably, they might kind of start panicking like, wow, all my barriers are like, all these barriers are worthless now. I've got to kind of, my rote's not safe. And so kind of even without having to install this card, it's actually doing work.
Yeah, that's actually, I hadn't thought about that as much as like, oh, if you show the corp like, oh yeah, John Kurapira, they might just like not bother to put barriers down, even though you haven't put the Kurapira down, because they're like, well, you're only one click away from having it. And so like, why would I bother putting an ice that I then have to spend money, like spend that click and money just to make you get the card I know you have in hand? Could be an interesting kind of gambit to some extent.
Yeah, I also think that like the matryoshkas are real with Mushla. It doesn't really need to be Kurapira. It could just be, how many additional Mascriosas you have, and you reveal a couple, you have them in hand. You don't need to commit the click to playing them yet, and the corp doesn't actually know what your reach is.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I like that one.
There's also something very visually, like now that it's up on the screen, I'm realizing like the heads kind of look not too unlike like the Mascriovka dolls. I'm butchering the name.
Yeah, that's true.
I think when I saw this idea as well, it reminded me of like way back when I started playing Netrunner, there was this Andromeda deck that played one copy of Oracle May and then 3 icebreakers, and I think the rest of the cards were events in the deck. And I was just like, I don't think there are enough run events to do an equivalent with this, but it did kind of make me think, oh, maybe we can do some weird deck building, and then it might just be enough value to make it work.
Yeah, this seems like a fun like Jank Eternal deck where you're like, oh yeah, I want my entire deck to be able to be drawable, so I'm just gonna play all of the run events and only icebreakers, and that's gonna be my whole deck. And like I could see that in Eternal being almost playable. But,
okay, silly question for someone who hasn't dug super deep into Eternal. Is drawing a card every turn a good enough ID ability in Eternal?
Probably not quite. I mean, it's fun.
Oh no.
If we lost Jeff, we're gonna really be in trouble.
We lost Jeff. The other thing is I don't see his...
Okay, yeah, thank you for catching that.
Oh.
I apparently...
You're back.
I nudged the cable on my microphone and it freaked out. I was to say, Andromeda is like a power criminal ID at, just draw 4 cards at once in the whole game. That said, just drawing a card a turn is probably not quite good enough.
Yeah.
But, it's more on the like, oh, we could make it, more on the like fun, we can do a silly thing in Eternal rather than the like, oh, this is going to be an Eternal powerhouse kind of thing. So.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. Though I guess you could do this now. Like you could do the all run event Oracle May deck, and include icebreakers. And if you happen to Oracle May and icebreaker, you just use Katorga.
You just retrieval run or something.
Yeah, retrieval run or Katorga to get it back. And so you're drawing, 2 cards a turn, making 2 credits. I guess you're drawing 1 card clicklessly, and then another card that also gets you 2 credits. Seems like a fun little janky idea. Any final thoughts on Musala?
So I think there's some other events that we just run events that we just kind of have to call out. We have like Reprise, Concerto. I'm pulling up the list now, but I think that there's a couple other run events that we really didn't see, that didn't see much consideration before. That we're not going to call them all stars, but I think they're at least worth consideration. Reprise was probably the thing that I still struggle to believe is real, and then still have it played against me and go, I guess that won the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so,
funny. I've definitely had this debate with people that they're like, oh, Concerto is just a free card in your deck, and like, I don't think that's actually correct, but I think like maybe when you actually are drawing it at truly no cost, or like it's your ID abilities trigger, like maybe that's good enough. I don't know. Wentic on the chat is shouting out Tread Lightly, a card that like I think is actually really underplayed.
Tread Lightly has been slept on a bit, I think. I always forget the Reprise as a run event as well. I think I actually lost a game in the team tournament at UK Nats because I forgot. I thought Tread Lightly Reprise just bounced a card, and I forgot it let you make a run as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
playing a learn to play. I was playing a learn to play game, teaching somebody 2 weeks ago who was playing for the first time ever, and they absolutely crushed me. But the Tread Lightly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we always forget how like narrowly, like how credit narrow a lot of network games are. It's like, oh, I needed those 3 credits, and like it can happen quite a bit.
Yeah, I think this ID can also consider things like window of opportunity, and I mean, Carpe Diem is, I think, just a kind of auto include, since it's a run event that you can actually just play outright and not need to commit to a run. Being able to draw that, clicklessly is, I think, very, very good.
I think another thing as well is because unlike Sable, for example, where you're having to make a successful run every turn to get your value, this card just kind of gives you value every turn. It kind of means that you can maybe like change the way you build your deck on like play the game. So instead of like trying to do normally Crim just wants to make like a good successful run a turn and then do some other things. This is maybe saying you can spend a couple turns building out, and then you're just gonna have a turn where you maybe play like 4 run events or something and just completely try and overwhelm the court.
Oh, so this is more of a meme question, I think. But is this the fabled Ghost Tongue Criminal deck finally?
Someone will do it.
That someone may be me on a stream, and I may regret it immediately. But
I mean, just play Mystic.
Yeah.
Oh, Ashes, when will you ever not just have a better card than something else we're trying to do for reg value?
Well, I think the real thing for why Ghost Hunt is usually disappointing is because there are 0 cost events that typically you would want to play, and you get like, it feels really bad to have a 0 cost event and be like, well, I get no value off of, like, this is one less card in my deck that matters for Ghost Tongue.
Yeah.
I guess, I've seen a lot of this is a 3x pinhole meta. I feel like that is like the last thing that definitely needs to be shouted out here. Guess what?
Oh yeah,
3x pinhole and shot.
I mean, I will say one thing in Ghost Tongue's favor is now that Cleaver's banned, it means you've got to play the real barrier breaker, which is Tremolo. And, Ghost Tongue has some synergy with Tremolo. So.
Okay, there you go, Jeff. That's your excuse. Ghost Tongue, Tremolo, Mushlet.
Fantastic. All right, well, should we move on to the next card? The next ID, I should say. Yeah, give me one. I'm realizing as I say that I need to do some janky pull-in stuff. So give me 1 second, and make sure I don't actually pull in a non-spoiled card. It's giant bandgun. Okay.
I mean, it is giant.
Yeah.
It is accurate. It's true to form.
It's not ob size, so I don't know about that. But
do we know that?
I can't imagine a hovercraft is bigger than ob, because ob was like the size of like multiple real world super tankers.
No, so like actually in this art, you can't tell how far away the hovercraft is, but it's actually miles away, and it's still that big.
All right, so this is Bandgun, subtitled "When Disaster Strikes." It is a corp subtyped identity of 4515. You may install agendas face up. This does not make their abilities active. Whenever the runner accesses a face-up installed agenda, do 2 meat damage and give the runner 1 tag. And the flavor text is, will be there. So Bandgun is apparently spun off of a disaster relief company, which I think is a fun little bit of flavor. And we see on the backside, it's got measured response on there, which I feel like is, I suspect we're going to see a lot of Bandgun decks playing measured response. It seems like they might go, pretty well together. So, any initial thoughts on this ID?
It has the greatest name of any card in the set. That's my massive claim. It's gonna be so fun to just say bang, bang, bang across the table.
Yeah, I think what I like most about it is some corps are trying to be a bit sneaky and subtle in how they go about things, and like this Wayland identity is just the complete opposite of that, and I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for the bang bang, and I'm here for being basically turning the hidden information game on its head. Although there's still room to be sneaky where you don't do the agenda face up, right? Big fan. I love the flavor text too of the "will be there" with the kind of insinuation. It's like whether you want us to be or not.
Yeah, I think I should probably shout out. This feels like it's an echo of Argus, and I think it's that it is nice when we've got we've had some tech IDs that are like, oh, these are doing things where it's like, oh, value damage and whatever. Like I'll generate some tempo, and then it's like, yeah, Argus and Bandgun are like, no, you steal our stuff and like prepare to suffer. We're just gonna come after you. I think it's a fun Wayland being very Wayland in a way. And I think it's interesting that Bandgun is Argus, both sides of Argus, but only for a subset of the agendas. I think it's kind of interesting, but I saw a lot of people being like, oh man, I can't wait till I wish we could just reprint Argus. And this feels like it's not exactly going to play like Argus, but I think it's a very interesting kind of echo and callback without, being exactly the same ID.
I think it's pretty interesting in that I think the way Bandgun wants to play the game is kind of similar to Argus. And that one thing you can say is this ID is not a fast advance ID, because if you're fast advancing, then the text bot doesn't do anything, and you kind of want to, and the ID is also kind of incentivizing you to play lots of agendas. So we're probably not doing 6-5-3s out of Bandgun. So what does that mean? It means we're kind of pushing agendas in remotes, but maybe scoring lots of them. I'm not really sure what the deck looks like.
Yeah, I think it's a good call out that you want to care. You need to build your game plan around the agendas that you're putting in a remote and that you're threatening. I do think that you can probably do a focus on 5-3s with SDS and Basalts, because you just specifically time where your threats are. So your text box is blank for the majority of the game, but you create, Angelique, very difficult server to kind of get into, maybe backed by measured response or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just the 2 meat and the tag are the critical thing that pushes you over on the turn.
Yeah, I wonder if you'd stack, you do a Daniela plus Angelique, you almost don't need ice at that point because you're doing effectively 6 meat damage and a tag, and then the runner has to be ready to survive the follow-up on your turn.
One thing that's funny if you do go down the 5e route is because the ID happens on access rather than steal. It means if you access an SDS without a program to trash to it, then you're just going to be very sad. So you probably don't want to do that.
I mean,
Yeah,
I guess
I was about to highlight it.
you're choosing to access like that. SDS has to be face up, so you're really like you've done something yourself, quite silly there, probably.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. It definitely requires cooperation from the runner, but it's just I think when I saw the idea, I was just thinking accesses. Oh, why does it say access rather than steal? Like there must be some something.
Yeah,
yeah,
getting like an upgrade in there that snipes them and gets the damage through, and then they're like, oh, you know, bad times.
You can always throw an agenda on Amaze Amusements too, just to really, really hammer it home.
yeah.
I thought about that, but that
I
sounds quite
wonder.
rude.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, it's like, okay, what ice do I need to put in front of this if I have, Amaze Amusements, Angelique, Daniela, and the face up SDS? I'm like, as the runner, I don't. Maybe you just like put like, well, I
None?
guess,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
yeah. Is none
You kind
ice
of
the correct
ice
amount for that remote?
you need to put ice on centrals because
Yes.
you're that's where you're weak basically because your ID's not doing nothing there.
Yes, I think that's a really good call out. The ice is for your centrals, the Maze Amusements and other traps. The ice is not for your remote in this game plan.
Yeah, yeah. You can maybe put up a pit. You put up a single Kesselroyd or something just to like keep them marginally honest. But yeah, you probably to a certain extent don't even need it. Like just to.
Maybe it's the fun house or something like that. Just
Oh yeah, that's true too. Like yeah,
Yeah,
sure. We can just tag stack here, and it's like maybe it's a little bit tricky to be like, oh, I'm gonna hold end of the line kills as well as measured response kills at the same time. So maybe you have to pick one or the other. But maybe you can hold both. I'm not sure. But
the card that I
yeah, it's a bit.
discovered today was a front company, and I like the idea of using that to make them run the gauntlet on the centrals, and then like create. If you want to take the agenda, you have to have run the gauntlet first, and I don't know. That's just fun for me.
yeah, you do. I mean, like we have Cylindra now. That I apparently can't spell. Oh no. Which is a pretty good centrals ice. Kind of like Mausolus of old. Does a damage, makes the owner lose credits. So it could be relevant. Oh, did I go offline?
I don't think so.
Now we can still hear you.
Okay.
Good.
Let me double check. 'Cause my thing is saying I'm offline.
It says streaming again. You're good.
Okay. Cool. Who knows? Having a clean day it seems, but
One thing I was wondering is, are we playing Plutus out of this ID? I think you might if your idea is to play lots of agendas to get more ID triggers, then that kind of means you have cheap agendas to sack to res Plutus.
Do you have the critical mass of operations transactions even?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is tricky.
I think it's a hard sell when you need to protect centrals, protect the Plutus, have a critical mass of probably small agendas that you're willing to sack to Plutus.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess you could argue, like, hey, hedge fund and government subsidy are, like, relatively high click or, like, credit per card generators.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not, like, the best, I guess, right? They're +4 and +5, and, like, there are cards that are more than that. I'm trying to, like, not a ton, but there are some, like, Regolith is plus a silly amount, but it's also a lot of clicks and stuff. So I don't know. That's probably a bit of a challenge for a Plutus deck. I do also like someone in chat shouting out Eminent Domain, and like if Banggun installs an Eminent Domain face up and like puts an ice in front of it, I'm like, I don't know as the runner, like, do I actually contest that? Like, am I just dead if it's like the first 2 or 3 turns? Like, do I want to take that risk or just let them kind of build out a board state? I think that's an interesting question you have to kind of ask yourself as the runner now, especially for like a 1-pointer that feels like it could be a lot of risk depending on the board state.
I think you may not even need the ice protecting the Eminent. you could literally go like install eminent face up, install an anthill face down, and go like, I'm going to stick one of these. You know, they touch the eminent, they are probably taking most of their turn. They're losing 2 cards out of their initial 5 if it's like turn 1, plus the tag. If they have to respect the end of the line, follow up, they probably have some additional things that they need to do with their clicks. You stuck the anthill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like a solid foundation to start your game on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more, yeah, I think the measured response versus end of the line thing is kind of interesting because the click compression angle kind of makes you want to go into like public trail end of the line shenanigans. But I think fitting, I mean, and obviously you want measured response, but I think it's tough to fit all these operations in. Really, like I don't know how you're gonna do it.
Yeah, I think you have to probably choose between the packages, and then might like evolve into different flavors of Vangun. Where like the measured response one probably wants to move faster, play a bunch of 2-pointers. I think someone in chat was saying, you know, a measured response list wants like 10x 2-pointers, which I think is pretty on point. So you probably want to have like a very different agenda suite for the measured response one, maybe go a little bit faster, and then like just say, hey, I'm going to put this, you know, off-world office out on the table face up. Hell, you could have seamless and just be like, yeah, I'm going to threaten to like score out incredibly quickly with measured response backing it up, or just go the completely, you know, a different direction, have like, you know, a bunch of 5/3s and be really careful with when you push out agendas, but then you're backing it with like the public trail end of the line stuff, or maybe even have Oppo backup to protect centrals.
I think Oppo is interesting as well because if the runner's gonna say like, well, okay, my plan is just to win off centrals because your ID doesn't do anything on centrals, but then I feel like with this idea it's really easy to make like an Oppo fork where you push an agenda and low, do something, and then just Oppo resets the runner, and yeah,
I agree. You need something to make sure that you're not just losing on centrals, and I think Oppo could be an option. But also, Eminent scoring it out and getting a big nasty ice. It's like on centrals, maybe, I don't know. Is fine.
yeah,
That is one way defenses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means good, but I pretty much only play startup just so that I can start absorbing more and more of the cards, and that's been working well for me. And I'm really excited to be playing this in startup. It just looks like fun. It'll be fun to build around and have a good time.
Anything in startup particularly that you're like, oh, I can't wait to try. Like, I really want to try this plus, you know, this other thing in startup.
What was the one I was saying earlier? Was it Front Company? Is that the name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at on this so far, and I wish I had more time to look at cards the last couple of days, but I've been swamped with other things. And but on the surface, at least, it seems like that's a fun line to be playing.
Yeah, make that tag matter more because you're click taxing them in that second way as well. I think that's an actually interesting idea that, you know, I always think, I was like, oh, this can only ever be like an Argus style deck where it has like a single remote, and it's just like the whole game is about like, okay, who gets to make use of this remote? But looking at a slightly more horizontal version is kind of an interesting idea with cards like Front Company, and being like, you know, I'll sometimes just put an agenda face up and account, like, let the rest of my board kind of protect it. I think is an interesting idea.
I think also, like, similar to Eminent, False Lead could also be quite root in this deck.
Yeah, I was just about to say, install 3 false leads face up as your turn.
Or face down, like, for the same reason. And
sure, yeah.
But once you've got it scored, you know, you can really kind of push the run into awkward situations.
Yeah, and I guess it's like there is a world where like, oh, you put it face down, the runner's like, you know what, you can have the anthill, and then you're like, oh, psych, it was a false lead. And the runner then feels like they're like, oh, I'm suddenly in the danger level
Yep.
has gone way up all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think if you're playing Oppo, like false lead looks a little bit better than Eminent in my opinion, and in like a kind of like the Oppo style list.
Yeah.
With like a focus on startup, I think actually like Amaze Amusements is actually probably one of the funniest things that you can really be doing with Bandgun. You know, at the slightly lower power level, you have also like orbitals to like threaten out meat damage and stuff as well.
That's true. Yeah, because you won't have end of the line forks to go with, so you will have to be leaning a little bit more on some of these slightly clunkier kill combos. Though I guess you will have measured response probably as one of your main win conditions in startup,
Yeah.
potentially.
You also have, I mean, weirdly enough, in startup with like Liberation Cycle, you have Mindscaping. You
I
can
was
just
trying to
3x.
remember what the name of it was. Yeah, Mindscaping is exactly what I was just thinking of.
Like if you are actually going as far as to Amaze Amusements them, then Mindscaping becomes real, which is kind of hilarious.
That is very funny. Yeah, I feel like I've never seen Mindscaping as like this can potentially do a 3 damage like as part of my win combination kind of thing. I'm so used to being like, oh yeah, I'll sometimes like weave it in like, as part of like a 3-card combo to get 1 extra damage in. But like no, it's like in theory in Bandgun with something like a maze, you could really actually start cranking this out for real damage, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, you can do Amaze, Angelique server, Angelique in hand with like Mindscapings, and like that's all startup legal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Angelique does seem like it will go in a lot of she will go in a lot of Bandgun decks as well. So that'll be something that you should keep an eye out on. All right. Well, I think any other final thoughts on Bandgun, and then maybe we'll go around and see if there's any other IDs that people are like, oh, I'd love to talk about this quickly or something. Or maybe we'll have people talk a little bit about what their favorite ID, like what something they're excited to do with their favorite ID rather than just what it was. So Drew, I might start with you. If I remember correctly, you said that Phoenix was your favorite ID. Is there something that you're like excited to try and do with Phoenix on release?
No, I feel like I still need to see more of the card pool. I think Phoenix, I'm just, big punk rock fan, and I'm a big fan of just the art and everything on it more than anything. And that's
that's
what's
great.
got me excited. Yeah.
No, I mean,
I got some brewing.
Cool.
What do you say?
No, I was just gonna say like, I always, for a long time I'm like, I'm a serious card gamer. I don't care about the theme. I just care about the mechanics. It's like, no, that's such a lie. Like a good theme like makes the game like so much more fun and fun to interact with. And I feel like it's like I think when I'm like, oh yeah, Baz, like I'm excited to play Baz, is like not just because of the ID text. It's like he's just I don't know, I find him a very cool character, and it's like, yeah, let's go and give that a go. I think
same enthusiasm for Baz too, and like I think that's an important part about the game is it's not just rules text on cards, right? Like for somebody who's seeing the game for the first time, because Netrunner is kind of it's got that initial speed bump of learning that a lot of games don't have. It's a little trickier to learn and everything. That having really good flavor and really good art and theming that draws people in, it kind of helps bridge that gap and capture their attention long enough to want to learn the rules to the game and everything. And yeah, sometimes that's easy to miss when you're like really into the meta and what's the most competitive thing there. Yeah.
I half think that I'm a criminal player just because I like the color blue. I was also a blue player in Magic. Like, yeah, aesthetics matter.
No, I think but to answer your question on like cards that I'm excited to build around, I think it's Banggun is the one that I'm wanting to play with first. That'll probably be one of the first decks I'm building. And I already said a little bit of what I'm excited about there.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I'm also pretty hyped about Baz. Baz just looks like a lot of fun, and I'm looking to just get games in. Like it looks like it'll be a fun card just to play with.
Yeah, all the of the ideas that we've seen so far. I think you also mentioned being excited for Phoenix, but I'm kind of curious, like, what you're what you're hoping to get out of the first. Obviously we don't know a lot of the cards still in the set, especially on the runner side, but things you're kind of excited to do when the set comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I think also Baz and Nebula were the other two IDs that I looked at and kind of want to start making decks with straight away. Yeah, I mean, Phoenix is interesting. Like we haven't seen too many Anarch spoilers yet, but obviously it works really well with Banhar. And I'm kind of thinking probably the first thing I'll try is just taking the existing Crew Hashiko deck that's like playing Anikam and just kind of porting that over to Phoenix, because I think the only thing that deck loses to rotation is Amakura. And maybe Banner's actually good and we can play Banner as an Amakura replacement. I'm not super convinced on that, but it kind of also synergizes a bit with the ID. Yeah, and then Nebula also really excites me. It's just giving me kind of classic MBN fast advance vibes. I mean, obviously we don't know what agendas MBN's getting, and it's only Project Beal's about to rotate, so hopefully MBN gets some new 3/2s, and then we can do fast advance shenanigans.
Yeah, because they right now, like, if with rotation they'll only have tomorrow's headline, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
But they are losing Beal. But if they get a 3/2, 4 3/2s, it's like enough to start thinking about that as kind of a fast advanced game plan.
Yeah. And I like IDs that kind of force interaction from the runner, and Nebula basically says you have to run, whenever I'm flipped, you have to come and run HQ and an RD, because give me the click is going to be bad for you. And I like that on IDs.
Yeah, it's like even if you don't actually have the fast advanced pieces, the runner isn't going to know that. So like you can force them to do things that are like suboptimal just because they have to respect this threat. Which could be, that's like a fun. I feel like a lot of NBN IDs have had this problem of like, but what if the runner like doesn't run? And this ID kind of says, well, if you don't, I'm just going to start winning, and like you can't ever do anything about it. So I think that's a fun aspect of this ID, that like it solves a common problem in like your game nets and your epiphanies and your Probdivos, where it's like, oh yeah, the runner doesn't run, like what does my deck do? And like Nebula / Gamelon Arena have like a really clear answer to what they do if the runner chooses to sit back. Well, say for your last on my list here.
Yeah, so let's see. In terms of IDs in Elevation, I think I'm actually really looking forward to playing Topan, or Topin. I think one of I don't know how much the conversation has been around this, but the 3-cost unique thing that draws you 2 cards, what was the card called? It's the neutral thing.
Verbal Plasticity.
Yeah. Verbal Plasticity, thank you. Verbal Plasticity is like surprisingly good with Topan. And just kind of, I think, plays into kind of what Topan, like what kind of Topan needs. So like just having a different take, I think, on like a more reg Anarch, I think will be like kind of interesting and fun to play around with and try to optimize. I think that, let's see. Oh, LEO for sure is a deck that I'm probably gonna end up playing a lot of it, I think. I'm probably gonna end up playing a lot of LEO between like the grid, Makota Langit grid and Vovo together, I think makes for like a really interesting package in LEO.
Because you're resing for effectively 4 less.
Yeah, you can res a brand for 2. You can res a brand for 2. That is a way to really kind of like mitigate.
Yeah, that's a very good border control.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think, yeah, so I also want to call out IDs that are not new. So I think new Vem measured response is going to be a fun list that I want to explore kind of early on, and see exactly how that ends up panning out. I don't know. New Vem kind of is a little bit of like a what is it? I don't know. It's kind of like a no. So it's, I mean, it's kind of Gamba, right? Like, I don't know how a better way to phrase it. It's like you just rip a whole bunch of cards very, very quickly, and go really fast. And New Vem, like, I think I'm a very firm believer that measured response wants like 2-pointers. And I really love the idea of like playing 3x slash and burn so that you can like AZF, like threaten, like, and just like you be like, I'm gonna trade my AZF I'm gonna score it out, and you can have this slash and burn that's in the bin. I don't care. I'm on measured response. Yeah, go ahead, take the click, access archives, go for it. Cool. We're closer to threat 4 now. Great. All right. Are you ready? Okay. Like that to me just sounds like a lot of fun. I'm not super convinced it's going to be like the most top tier deck ever, but I think that it will be just so much fun to play.
Yeah, no, that sounds very fun.
Yeah. And then I think the last non-elevation ID that I'm most curious about is Seb, actually. Because I think Seb...
I'm shocked. I'm just shocked, Safer, that you mentioned Seb.
No! Look, everyone thinks that I have a Seb bias, but I don't. I just like cards that are themed with connections, which I think means that I do have a Seb bias, but it's not a Seb in particular bias. But look, so I think Seb in current standard, some people have found success with Seb, but like, I think Seb's power level was not really made for current standard. So I am interested in seeing kind of where Seb falls, like in the elevation standard, like in where that ends up like taking Seb lists.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ollie.
Well, I was just going to say, I would like to try Seb, but then I feel like I'm worried I'm just going to run into Synapse Global every game if I do that.
That's a good shout. Yeah, that's going to be a... Well, I mean, it's like we have there's also like the Essa Thule matchup, and I wonder if the Synapse Global Seb matchup is like both players just being like, no, please take a tag so I can clear a tag. No, please, I insist, you know.
Yeah, it's got to be better than the R plus matchup, that's for sure. So
yes.
like I think like that dynamic already kind of already existed, but at least like now it's better. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think Synapse is going to be an interesting puzzle. I've seen a lot of people be like, this idea is terrible. I'm like, I don't know if it's terrible. I definitely see why it's harder to use than Reality Plus. I'll be interested to see if people are able to crack something interesting for this. Because like,
it has the magic words of ignoring all costs on it, which means you can never really rule it out.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's my sense of like, probably the way you take this is you look at you underline that ignoring all costs, and then you go from there to figure out what your game plan looks like. But
yeah, I think okay. So if we're gonna take a little bit to talk about Synapse, I do think that people are probably sleeping on this idea a little bit. I think it's just flexible. I think it's a very flexible idea that you can do a lot of things with. So I suspect Synapse to be something that shows up in different metas in much different forms. like I think that you can definitely do like a kind of vertical build with this, making use of that and ignoring all costs. But I also think that you can do things like, you can do like a kind of like tag storm, more like horizontal list too, I think, where you're like, sure, here, I'll reveal that I installed another value asset, like that you didn't want to go and trash anyways. Like let's say it's like a balanced coverage or something like that. Like, sure, you didn't have to spend the click to like run the bounce coverage, but like either you were going to try to keep me down economically, or I'm going to become unbelievably rich, and you're going to have to like anytime you actually interact with something that's relevant, you're going to get full oppoed. You know?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes some sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those IDs where I think it can be strong, but I have no idea what the strong deck looks like. But I would not be surprised if
fair.
we see some strong decks coming out of it.
Only because I was just going through cards I hadn't looked at in a while earlier today. Was it B1001 that removes a tag to end the run? With this, where you're like, yeah, I'll end the run, I'll get my install.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's probably some silly setups where it's like, oh yeah, I have a B1001 remote and a fun house, and like you can't make progress on my centrals, or whenever you try to, I'll just end the run and keep going out further and further wide. Some interesting.
You can do that. And if you do it, if you're running click 4 against that, then I get to potentially fast advance the thing.
Oh yeah, that is.
We lost Jeff again.
Yeah, Jeff, we lost it again.
Yeah, you can't run click 4 against Titan. That's just gonna make you sad.
Yeah, or not only can you not run, you also can't clear a tag click 4 against Synapse, because they can just like plop an agenda down the table. So like I wonder, it's like, oh, does every Synapse have to play like 1x seamless launch so they can just like throw a 4-2 on the table last click just as like the threat to the runner? Could be interesting. Interesting challenge for the deck. But all right, well, I think we're just about to hit the end of the hour, so I want to thank all three of you for coming on. This has been a really fun conversation, and we've got the start of community spoilers starting tomorrow. So we've got Backroom Deals, the ShadowNet, Rapanui, and GLC all coming out with spoilers. So while today may have only had 2, I suspect tomorrow we're going to get a little bit more than 2 cards to talk about. And we'll have some special guests on to talk about it tomorrow. But I want to thank the 3 of you for coming on. This has been a ton of fun. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and chatting. It's been great to see all of you here tonight and all of the other nights. And I'm looking forward to the next just over a week before spoilers or before Elevation's out. And everyone can also thank Drew for making sure that it's actually in people's hands, and Safer for getting the card text all in the right ways. And if it's wrong, we can also all blame Safer for that too. So.
Blame me for balancing. You can blame me for card text. You can blame me for so much.
It's the best.
I might not have the honors of being, an amazing artist or a great designer or anything in between that got the text on the cards, but I can say I was the first person to touch the packaged box of Elevation when it arrived last week. And,
oh yeah, that's
it
true.
should start getting shipped this weekend, hopefully. So
that's sick. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and everyone enjoy your evening, and we'll be back here tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
hell yeah.
Thanks. Peace.